Hi, I'm Dave Taylor, pastor of Grace and Peace Church of the Nazarene. Today is Ash Wednesday, marking the beginning of the season of Lent in the Christian church. I wanted to take a moment to share a few thoughts that I have on this day. First, you won't find Ash Wednesday mentioned in the Bible. It's a construct of the church. And in fact, those two reasons alone make many believers suspicious of this day that has such profound meaning for many Christians. They believe that the key to genuine spirituality is the minimizing of all rites and ceremonies like Ash Wednesday and the season of Lent. And I understand their concerns. In fact, we can look at the Gospel of Matthew to support the idea of the futility of practicing piety to be merely seen by others. Matthew 6:1 reads this way: "Beware of practicing your piety before others in order to be seen by them, for then you have no reward from your Father in heaven." So why do we observe this practice of placing ashes on our forehead to mark the beginning of Lent, those 40 days that lead up to Easter? Well, first, I would say that Matthew 6:1 is not so much a prohibition of the practice, but rather a characterization of the attitude in which we enter the season of Lent with its fasting and self-reflection. I want to read more from chapter 6, skipping down to verse 16. "And whenever you fast, do not look dismal like the hypocrites, for they disfigure their faces so as to show others that they are fasting. Truly, I tell you that you have received your reward. But when you fast, put oil on your head, wash your face, so that all your fasting is not seen by others, but by your Father who is in secret. And your Father who is in secret will reward you." Well, the second thing I wanted to say about these calls to confession and repentance, along with the prayers for forgiveness, is this. You see, in ancient Israel, the symbol of ashes was understood to be a forceful reminder of the pervasiveness of human sin and the inevitability of human death. The Christian church adopted this traditional emblem of grief and mourning as a signal of our own sinful mortality and our utter dependence on God. It is an observance of the coming dark days in Jesus' own death, that is, his suffering and death. Psalm 51 is probably the classic piece of literature that captures the faithful man or woman of God in the act of throwing himself or herself on God's mercy. Psalm 51 begins this way: "Have mercy, O God, on me, according to your steadfast love, according to your abundant mercy. Blot out my transgressions, wash me thoroughly from my iniquity, and cleanse me from my sin, for I know my transgressions, and my sin is ever before me." I encourage you to read the rest of this Psalm 51, sometime this week. Find a quiet time and reflect on your own reliance on God's grace in your life. And finally, there's the associated with Lent, this admonition to engage in fasting. Look, the point of giving up something is very simple. It's to make space for God in your life. And so whether you identify with maybe giving up a meal once a week or giving up Facebook or some other time-consuming activity, look for a way this week and through the season of Lent to simply make space for God in your life. Now, what about those ashes on the forehead on Ash Wednesday? I know I said they weren't in the Bible, and of course, due to COVID, our church won't be doing that in person this year. So instead, let me just take you back to Genesis 3:19. This is a passage reminding us of our mortality. This is when God said this to Adam: "By the sweat of your face you shall eat bread until you return to the ground, for out of it you were taken. You are dust, and to dust you shall return." I hope that you'll join with me and Grace and Peace Church of the Nazarene in our journey with Jesus toward the cross during this season of Lent. Thank you, and God bless you.